I mean, you remember, that whole clans thing, with the hoods. I mean, you had these Klansmen going around burning crosses, right?
Yeah.
But these were your doctors and your lawyers and your policemen
cops.
and your judges and, your loans people, like your loan sharks, your bankers. That's who that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you didn't know that. You didn't know who they were. You walk past this man on the street and not know, like, at night he secretly burns crosses.
Right.
Or he very publicly writes, litigation to keep you from.
Right.
So it's just
you get it on both ends, day and night.
They are everyone, and they are no one.
No one. Yes. So that was very powerful and telling, man. And so with that part, when he's talking to him, trying to get him ready and get his mind right for the mental war and potential situations. Then they go into the new training that's about combat, which I thought was just before its time, man. That whole thing, the whole concept of being able to download information directly into your mind.
Right.
That was so brilliant. And what made it work so well is that you see Keanu Reeves, you see him like in Bill and Ted. So he's very frail and he's not like an action star or anything like that. So when he goes from, being like from Bill and Ted, and then you see him all of a sudden doing all this martial arts stuff, it's just like, you didn't see it coming. Like, I would have never had thought all the stuff that he would be able to do. And I thought it was kind of brilliant, because you would have got like a known action star. You'd be like, well, I already know he could fight. I already know Sylvester Stallone would win. I already know that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, if it was like a Wesley Snipes, if it was like a Stallone, a Schwarzenegger, a Chuck Norris, Van Damme, any of them would have been like, oh, okay, we know what this movie's going to be. Like,
he gonna tear that Agent Smith up. Don't worry about it. I know how this is going to end with his foot across this side of his face.
Right. But to see Keanu Reeves and then to see Laurence Fishburne.
Yeah. Oh, his yes. But
yeah, like, man. Whoa, like, wait a minute. Okay, so from the start of the combat scene, I love it when he's like, he's like, I know Kung Fu, and he's like, show me.
Yeah,
right?
show me. Yeah.
So that whole piece, I think, was powerful too, because it's your whole life you've been conditioned to try.
Yes.
Right? You want to try your best, right?
Right.
And do your best, try your best, try the hardest you can, blah, 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 blah. And so for Morpheus in this uphill battle, trying to convince Neo that he is the savior, right? He's the one, right? Yeah. And you got, your whole life you've been thinking he's just a normal Joe Blow guy, right? Yeah. So like that whole piece of fighting him when he tells him, stop trying to hit me
and hit me. That there. That there.
Stop trying. And he tells you, you're stronger than this. You're faster than this. And even in the same light when he tells him, he had knocked Neo down, and Neo's like, Morpheus says, how did I beat you?
Right.
And he's like, you're too fast. And he's like, do you believe that me being stronger or faster has anything to do with my muscles in this place, this computer generated place?
Right.
Does it really matter if I'm stronger than you or faster than you? And we're in a computer. Yeah. We're in a construct. Right. What is me having? Stop trying to hit me.
Right.
And hit me.
But the drop the mic mumbles when he said, "Do you think that's air you're breathing?" Do you think that's air that you are breathing?
Yes. Yes.
I had to swallow when I saw that. I was like, like, I'm watching it and I'm learning. I'm watching it and still being like, what?
Trying to get him to shatter that his mind is conditioning that this is all real. Right. Everything that you see in this is not real.
Right.
Therefore, you can bend it, you can break it, you can do all kind of stuff to it but you have to see it's not real. And Neo, of course, seeing that I'm bound by everything, gravity and blah 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 blah, speed, physics and all this kind of stuff. No, it's not real, son. Like,
and it's It's funny that he would even think that, considering before they loaded the that dojo simulation, he was in a blank area that was nothing there.
Yeah.
And it's so funny watching that as an adult. For some reason, seeing that blank, everything blank, it disturbed me. I didn't really realize how scary that is. Could you imagine just open your eyes and there's just nothing?
Right.
No top, no bottom, nothing. And for some reason, it just kind of like threw me off. I'm like, I think that would be scarier than anything else. Is just looking, there's just nothing. Nothingness.
Total abstract.
So it's funny how things hit you different, but just that blankness is something, man. It's just, but it just hit me funny just seeing like, I think the scariest part was just that the fact that there was just nothing there. Nothing.
I just to think, like you say, to question him and make him question himself, like, do you really think does this air you're breathing now? To think and saying like, what do my muscles have to do with this place? Like, your mind is is what is working now. Right. Not your body, your mind. And you have to shatter those kind of parameters that were set in place by conditioning, that you can't do anything that you can believe or that you can dream of, especially you, Neo, because I'm telling you, you're the one, but you're not believing me. You know what I'm saying? Right. That piece, that scene was just deep because it was good because it's just we gotta shatter this. The other piece I like too, the character names. So like this, so Neo, of course, being like the one, right? Translation piece into the one. And Morpheus, the translation piece with two, Morpheus and then the Trinity being the three. I was like, ooh. And so one needed two to bring him to three, and ultimately, like three. I mean, Trinity was pretty badass too. Like,
she was.
She was pretty badass too. I mean, remember, it was really, when he dies, it's her that brings him back. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we'd have to start journeying into number 2, but we ain't getting that part yet of why that was so important. But what'd you think about the Oracle?
Oh, that's funny you say that. I was thinking about that. I thought that I was curious of what they were going to do. I figured that she was female because they kind of said, we'll take you to go see her. But to see that she was a black woman, I thought that was powerful. I'm like, yeah, perfect casting. I'm surprised you did it, but that makes sense. Perfect casting. I thought it was just powerful how she was just like a, almost like a mother type figure. And it was so funny because you never really, the whole thing, everything was just so turned upside down with that movie, as far as like who the potential good guys and bad guys, that was all flipped around. Just your preconceived thoughts of things were just so flipped. So it was consistent to have her as a black woman, but then I was also surprised that they did that. But I thought it was just powerful. I thought that, that's the place they went for wisdom, and it was cool. Unexpected, but really cool.
And like I said, I mean, as a kid, I didn't think anything into it, but the older like me now, again, 20 years later, I've had this time to really learn about like a multitude of things, right? One, of course, not to get too deep into the controversy of where the story came from. Right. But the story actually originated from this black woman who ended up winning this lawsuit that she had against Warner Brothers for taking her story. Yeah. And so to have this black woman play the Oracle, the mother, right, of this story, it makes perfect sense that she would do that on that front, right? Because she gifted this story, even though, of course, they said that the Wachowski brothers wrote the story, but really, ultimately, she wrote the story. And then 2, we all know the cradle of life, where it came from, and where the oldest human was found, however the science works or whatever, in Africa, right? So the motherland, right? And so again, the mother will be this. So again, and you would have to go into a little bit in part 2 to appreciate that term that she was given, the mother. But just to know, like, in this movie, without the extra context, the people with the most wisdom was this black woman and this black man.
And for those reasons, I thought it peculiar that the Wachowski brothers wrote the story. It struck me odd, and I didn't know why, but I thought these are a lot of brown and black folks that's in charge with a lot of good information that is that are key key pillars in this story. And it kind of struck me. I thought like, man, that's really cool of them to be that open to see others as, you know, in these placements in the story. And I thought it was kind of odd. Find out later about where the story came from. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense than, because even, like I said, just for me seeing where this came from, who it came from, and being the way it was, and then even hearing like potentially Neo was supposed to be Will Smith, a black person. I'm like, oh, you were gonna make this character Neo black? Like that was the thing, and it would have been if he would have had time or would have chose it. I'm like, these two dudes did that? Like, it baffled me. It didn't add up. I just thought they were cool for doing it versus like the other potential reason is because you know, a black person wrote the, you know, story came from a
right.
So that's why they would do it, but it just didn't. It was enough to stick out for me to be confused on where this come from. Almost like when we had talked, almost like when we talked before about Watchmen. When I seen that, and I thought, let me pause this and see who made this, because I know this guy is the showrunner, but I don't understand why it's hitting all the right spots, because you would have to be there to know. You have to be there to have that swagger, you know, that don't come from nowhere. So either you borrowed it heavy, and I found out he did get people who knew what was up and consulted with them and had them with him to find those nuances and to do those nuances. But if he would have said it was just him and he came up with that, I would have known something was wrong. So the same way I thought that way about that new Watchmen, I felt that way with Matrix a long time ago. I didn't understand how they would, if the average guys in the middle of nowhere thought that way about us, we would have a whole different world. If that's common like that. If they in the middle of nowhere saw us as the Oracle, saw us as Morpheus, saw us as Neo, and that's middle of America, we would have a different America.
Oh yeah.
So we don't. So I was wondering why. So I was wondering how that was happening then, because it didn't match with, I don't know. I'm getting
I got you. I get it. I mean, again, but you know, I mean, just what we did get, if it wasn't for if Will Smith had continued, but what we did get, you know, was again, you know, Morpheus, who is such a pivotal character, like in just movie cinema, right? So you know, you got your Darth Vaders, you got like, you know, your Yodas, and Morpheus is I should say you have your Yodas, you know, those wisdom characters. I should say it's Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and Yoda. Those were the three that were all about like wisdom. Yeah. Right? And then you have Morpheus, who is, I mean, wisdom embodied, right? I mean, so poised, you know, he has this kind of, you know, this, I don't know, it's just this aura, you know, that's around him that's just like greatness and intelligence and bold and just everything, you know, just straight confident.
Too.
Like,
earned respect too. Yeah.
Right. You know, and ultimately a mentor.
Yes.
You know, ultimately a mentor. Like he saves the human race by convincing the person who can save the human race that he can save the human race.
Yeah. And good and fine with the fact of being that person. You know, we're living a time where everybody want to be number one, the one in front. Even if they're not prepared, they want to be in charge. They want to lead, but then don't have all the tools to do it. So to find somebody who has no problem being the one who brings the one there.
Yes.
You know, that's a show of power in itself.
Yeah.
I don't have to be in front to show who I am. You know, but back to your thing about the Oracle. One thing I thought was really wonderful, especially with her conversation with Neo, the whole time she's just asking, you know, questions to him that are like self-reflecting, and as much stuff, as long as the conversation was, and you know, like the sign above her head, you know, what does that mean? Oh, know thyself. The whole time, she's letting him dictate their conversation. And it was so crazy because it was funny. Neo only got the answers he was willing to accept. That whole thing would have been different if he would have said, hey, I'm the one. That'd have been a whole different thing. He let himself out that door, out that situation without having to be accountable. Right. At any time in that conversation, he could have just said, I'm the one, or you're looking at me, or I have it. She never said he wasn't the one. He said he wasn't the one. All she said is like, you have this potential.
Yeah, she asked him.
You just not ready yet. You're just not ready to accept it. So I don't know what's blocking you.
She asked him, "Do you believe you're the one?" Remember, she said, "Being the one is like being in love. You either know it or you don't."
Right. And she said, "I'm looking at your hands." And she's just like, "What do you got in your hands?" And okay. And she's like looking at his mouth and stuff inside. And she says, "That's interesting." And she says to him, and then I say, and then he answers, "I'm not the one." Oh,
bingo.
Well, kid, you have all the potential.
Yeah.
but I guess something's blocking you. Maybe.
She's like, I think you're waiting for something. He's like, for what? And she says, your next life. I mean, I don't know. Right.
Brilliant.
So, again, back to the foreshadowing, though.
Brilliant.
I mean, your next life. I mean, but again, brilliant. Again, back to that foreshadowing, that Jesus piece where it's like Jesus dies, right, mm-hmm. and then he's reborn, and that's when he is, you know what I'm saying? Like, I guess the thought of the knowing for Neo, where it's like, okay, obviously I am the one, but it's kind of like, you ever hear that quote that says, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right.
Right.
Because if you believe you can, then you can.
Right.
But if you spend your whole life thinking you can't, that's your mindset, then you're right. You can't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so
they're both right at the same time. Yeah.
Right.
Both answers are right. Yeah.
And so, Neo, do you believe in the one? I mean, no, I don't. I mean, I don't know. Then you're not.
Right.
It took him waking up, to think like, oh, damn, I am the one. You know what I'm saying? Like back from the grave type,
Right. Well, he did start believing though when he had to, because after that Morpheus ended up being taken because Cypher sold him out. So Morpheus got taken away by the agents. Okay.
That piece was deep too, though.
Yes.
That Judas piece. That piece was deep too. When Cypher was talking to that agent
mm-hmm.
and says, "You know what? I know that this stake isn't real.
Mm-hmm.
I know that these are computer generated pieces, information, data being sent to my brain, telling me how juicy this steak is, and I know it's not real. But ignorance is bliss."
Yeah. Yes.
And tells him, I want to be,
someone important, somebody
rich. It's
someone like an actor.
I know that this steak isn't real. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But trying to get Neo to accept that's not real. Yeah. The whole movie, and this guy says, "No, I know it's not real."
Right.
But I would rather, and then tells him, I don't want to remember anything.
Right.
I don't want to remember nothing. Cypher, I don't want to remember anything. I want to wake up and be this important actor person. Like, I mean, that piece is crazy. Just to think, like, to know what the real world is, right? And to say, you know what, I can't deal with this. And I can imagine it's not built for everybody. Everybody's not cut out to really accept that kind of reality. You know what I'm saying? When you're used to this,
dude,
you have to go from that to that. Like,
dude, that's most people. He is most people.
He's most people.
He is most people. That's why we're in the situation we're in now. Everybody denies everything. They don't see what's the oppression. They don't see, what they have takes away from somebody else. They know it, but they know that ignorance is bliss. They just want to wake up and have what they have, no matter the cost.
Yeah.
It's costing so much, but if it's not coming from their stack, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss. We're just not in a situation to benefit from that. Ignorance will get us killed. Ignorance will end our ignorance is game over for some of us.
Right.
So that whole option, that's a luxury. That ignorance is bliss. That's a luxury that is not afforded to most of us.
I love this quote from The Boys, the second season.
Mm-hmm.
And the one guy, the black guy, he's like over Watt at the time, and he says, he tells Butch, he's like, "That's a white man's luxury." I was like, oh, like just for somebody to have said it like that, it's been you've always had that notion and that concept in the back of your mind, like always. And then for him to just put it out there like that, you know what? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then make you think like, I probably shouldn't. That's a white man's luxury. You know, like, no, ignorance is bliss. It is, but it's not bliss enough for me to, you know, have some of those consequences that I would have that other people won't. And so, no, that part, I didn't want to skip over that piece because that piece right there, when he said that, I know that the steak isn't real, yet he's still eating it, and he's still like, and making all these, you know, these sounds that you know you would make when you bite into this juicy, tender steak, right? And it's like, oh, this is so good, yet you know it's not real, and you want to go back to that, and you want the people who are trying to wake everybody else up to fail, so that the rest of the people don't have to experience that. That's crazy.
Our life matters.
Yeah.
I can't breathe. Next. Next.
Yeah, next. But no, so yeah, no, and you know, but circumventing back to the Oracle piece. I mean, again, you know, for Morpheus and the Oracle to just be the gift bearers of wisdom, and to for one of them, you know, and look at it. I mean, if you want to look at it too, like, you know, Morpheus being like this father figure to most of his crew. Yeah, he released most of all of his crew, and so for Morpheus to be this kind of father-like role and be trying to give this encouragement, give this nurturing, give this, you know, this enlightenment to him. And then so for the mother role to come and to be like, you have the answers. You have the gift. All you have to do is believe, right? You have it. I'm not going to force you to learn this and to accept this. You already have it. It's in yourself, right? And so, remember that piece, you know, when she was talking to him and she says, and don't worry about the vase. I have one of my students pick it up and he turns, he's like, what vase? Turns and breaks it. Well, what's really going to really going to boil your cookie is, would you have broken it if I hadn't said anything? Right. And it's just like, again, would you be the one if I had said something? You know what I'm saying? Like, or would you just be the one? Like, it's in you. Like, I shouldn't have to say or spell it out for you. Right. It's in you. All you have to do is believe. Right. So
he needed to be told. And it was almost kind of like, well, you're just going to eat this cookie. You're going to be right as rain. You're going to tell yourself, I ain't believing any of this crap. Remember? Yeah. And I'm like, dude, you never told her that. That's what you said to somebody else. Yeah. She's repeating something you said to somebody else. Yeah. You know, I was like, wow. that would have perked me up like, huh?
Wait a minute.
Remember, you don't believe in none of this crap. Remember, you don't believe in none of this crap. You gonna eat this cookie, by the time you eat this cookie, by the time you get outside the door, you're gonna be all right. Everything will be right as rain. But she just dropping those gems and stuff and saying stuff like she was all over that dude. And like I said, any potential time, it was his fight to win. It was his title to claim. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, you know, and I think with most things, even when it comes to people, if we don't take it or accept it or think we're worthy, then we're not going to get it. And really got to be careful of our mindsets, because we truly get what we think we deserve. And that's with people, that's with relationships, that's with finances, that's with a lot of stuff. And I think a lot of times, you know, our problem as a people, you know, is the fact that we just don't think that we're worthy. Yeah. You know, and it plays a bigger thing than we actually think. And even though a lot of it, I think, is automated now, just because we've been in an environment for so long where it just kind of self-perpetuates, it's constantly being reminder, like, you are nothing, you are this, you are the bad guy, you are not smart, you are not this, you're not worth anything. And from so many different angles, it's like, if you don't know that you're in water, you don't know that you're in water.
Yeah.
You think it's
don't know
normal.
what you don't know.
Yeah. So it was just interesting to see him like, hey man, the answer's right in front of you. You just got to take that title.
Yeah.
But if you're not ready to take it, it doesn't matter because you'll just lose it anyway if you don't think that you deserve it.
Hey, this is Jay, and I hope you're enjoying the conversation so far. I just want to let you know that this conversation is part of a larger conversation that continues on the next episode. Thanks for listening.